LGR, the heartbeat of the Greek community.
This is London Greek Radio, on FM, online, and through your smartphone or tablets via our free app. Tune in and join the party.
LGR's Talking Property is brought to you in association with the Kings Group, your local high street property business that delivers on results and service. We'll get you moving. The views and opinions expressed on LGR's Talking Property are those of the host, guests and contributors and are not necessarily those of London Greek Radio. While all facts, figures and statistics are carefully researched, listeners should check before taking any action based on information and advice offered in this programme. LGR's Talking Property with Carl Knipe.
Good evening and welcome to LGR's Talking Property. A new year and a new identity for us. We've got a really thought-provoking programme planned for you this evening and a subject that anyone who's bought or sold a property will have an opinion on. Tonight we're looking at the buying and selling process in England and Wales. Scotland has a different and some would say better system. The structure in England and Wales is often accused of being outdated, complex and fraught with an air of uncertainty and potentially costly in money, time and anguish. There must be a better way. Tonight we're going to look at the beginning of the process, reservation fees, the conveyancing element, third parties, duplication and appetite for change. With me to discuss and debate and maybe even argue their various thoughts are three guests with differing experiences and perspectives of the subject. Firstly, we have Vishal Gulrajani, mortgage broker and protection advisor at Thomas Oliver, UK, and a friend of the show. Vishal has worked for a number of years in helping others either protect their loved ones or making the most of their money and achieving their financial goals. He's currently taking time out to obtain a diploma in regulated financial planning. Welcome, Vishal.
Thank you. It's good to be back.
It's nice to have you with us again. Paula Higgins is founder and CEO of Homeowners Alliance. Paula founded her Homeowners Alliance in 2012, an organisation created to champion, support and serve Britain's 17 million homeowners and 5 million aspiring to own a home. The Homeowners Alliance provide unbiased and practical advice as well as services that the public can rely on, whether they are buying, selling or owning their own home. Paula provides the leadership and strategic vision driving the organisation forward. She is also a respected commentator and advocate for homeowners and is regularly quoted in the media. Great to have you with us this evening, Paula.
Lovely to be here.
Is that right, Paula, that not only do you hold free passports, Irish, Canadian and British, but you're also born in Amsterdam?
That's true. I'm a bit greedy with my passports.
That could come in very, very handy then once the Brexit situation finally reaches an end. Our third guest is Mario Pitzioris. Mario's family originally hail from Larnaca. He has been working in the conveyancing industry for over 16 years. Having begun his career working as a conveyancer, Mario soon moved over into business development, assisting agents, builders and financial advisors to find the right conveyancing solution for them and their clients. Throughout this period, Mario has worked for My Home Move, the largest mover conveyancer in England and Wales, and is currently Deputy Distribution Director. From his experience of working with businesses of all different sizes across the country, Mario has a well-rounded view of both conveyancing and a wider property market. Good evening, Mario.
Good evening, Carl. Καλησπέρα σε όλους.
Might
as well use it.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, that's excellent. Remember, everybody out there, we want to hear from you tonight with your thoughts and comments. Call us on 0208 346 3345. Text us on 0737 661 1033, or you can now tweet at LGR Talk Property and put your questions and theories to the guest. Make it your show, get involved. So let's start at the very beginning, literally. Let's have a little look. When a purchaser or vendor is thinking about moving, once that decision is made, what actions should they take before they start to look for property or put their property on the market? Vishal, do you want to come back on this?
Yeah, the first thing you should do is sort out your finances. So you need to go and speak to a broker, go and see a bank, make sure you get the proper advice, make sure you know that you can sell and buy onwards or whatever you'd like to do. Otherwise, there's no point, you're wasting people's time.
Isn't that what everybody does?
No, 100% not. To be fair, I have a lot of clients that call me up after they found a property and I've never heard from them before. They've been referred to me, they found the property, and then they call me.
That seems bizarre, Paula.
Yeah, well, it's very true. You know, property is such an emotional experience to buy that you see what you want to and you fall in love with it. I'd also say that, particularly if you're thinking of selling, one thing that we see is that making sure you do your research carefully. Make sure you choose your estate agent very carefully, because they're not all the same, really. So do your research in terms of the price you want to put it at, and just be very active. Do not be passive. You're in the driving seat if you're going to make this sale or this purchase go through.
Okay. Mario, HIPs were unpopular. If we go back sort of, oh God, how long ago was that? 15 years ago now? Home information packs, that is, sorry. But had we kept the idea of them and refined the information and its purpose, do you think we might be further ahead in processing sales quicker?
I think now on reflection we would be, given the fact that you're looking at different countries and how their property market works. You know, ultimately the seller has to provide more information up front. You know, whether you're looking at Scotland, whether you're looking at Norway, you know, there is the provision of more information about the property up front, which we would have had with HIPs. We needed to refine it, but we kind of ditched it probably a little bit too soon, because it was viewed as not a great idea. And then here we are in 2019, and we're thinking, actually, you know what, it might have been a good idea, because, you know, you don't go and buy a car and then not look at its history and things like that. So it's similarly with the property, given it's going to be the most expensive thing most people are going to buy. You probably want to see what's available up front in terms of the property, and I think, you know, ultimately we need to be looking back. Maybe call it something different, because it's a bit of it doesn't necessarily fill people with confidence when you talk about HIPs.
Paula, you were going to say something?
I was going to say also what's interesting about it is that now people are doing a lot of their home buying, purchasing, or looking for online. They're starting their journey online.
That's very true.
So, you know, you don't even go into the professional and talk to the professional if it's the estate agent, whatever you're looking to buy a property. So, you know, that makes it more important to have that type of information up front before you start, you know, losing money or, you know. And we do see that, you know, now we have our transactions, half of the transactions in trains are not completing, and that is wasted money and stress and aggravation for people who are buying and selling.
So if you're putting your property on the market, you're saying you should be really instructing your lawyer, your conveyancer at that stage.
Yeah, I think, yeah, and just
isn't there a cost element involved there though?
Well, I mean, obviously there's lots of companies out there like ourselves who don't charge anything up front. It's sort of no move, no fee. But I think even if you don't go down that, just getting your paperwork in order in terms of, let's say you built an extension, get the paperwork there. You know, more importantly on leasehold as well, getting the information about who you pay your ground rent and service charge to. You know, that's vital information, especially because the delays around that area. But ultimately the seller has to do, it's not just a case of saying, okay, I'll sign the paperwork with the relevant estate agent to start marketing my property, and then I can put my feet up and maybe get a phone call every now and again to show somebody around. Ultimately the seller has to do a little bit more themselves.
Okay, but I think the listeners out there don't really know this though, do they? I mean, let's be honest, you don't sell a property every week, you don't buy a property every week. It's probably every 7 years. You've probably swam around the bowl a few times by then and forgotten everything. Vishal, do you not think there should be, should there not be better information out there that can be accessed?
Yeah, there needs to be something, because if you search up online, there is nothing. There's nothing in.
I think Paula's site at home.
Yeah, we have a lot of information. Yeah, so I mean, it's exactly true that it's the biggest purchase you're going to be doing, and there's very little information and very little independent information, which is what we try to sort of fill that gap. So we've got everything to do with buying and selling, trying to help you through the whole process. As an independent person, I think because people do it so infrequently, when they used to maybe rely on their friends or their family who've done it before, it's the world's changed a lot, and people really need to be informed and shouldn't just rely on the estate agent or their own research.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I think there's a point of good estate agency as well. Good estate agent will start saying to the seller, look, this is what you need to do to make their life easier. And ultimately to deliver and get somebody moved into their home in a time frame that's suitable for them. So.
But we have to remember that estate agents are working on behalf of sellers, and that's what they're doing.
Yes.
But there's no one there working on behalf of the buyer, really, and helping them through.
I think a good estate agent is worth their weight in gold, especially for a seller, because the amount of times that I spoke to a bad estate agent and I asked them, what's the lease?
Thank you very much.
Don't worry, not our company. But no, with lease details, basically, I go, what's the lease? Because I need it for the mortgage application. I need to know the ground rent. I need to know the service charge. I need to know the lease.
Yeah.
Not too sure. I think it's this. What good is that?
But they're actually meant to do that. I mean, that is actually, and that's the thing about this, the estate agents, that perhaps they might have the regulation there, but is it being enforced?
Yeah. Okay, we're going to go to a break, and then we come back. We're going to talk reservation agreements.
You're listening to LGR's Talking Property.
Στις δύσκολες στιγμές που ακολουθούν την απώλεια ενός αγαπημένου προσώπου, εμπιστευτείτε το Γραφείο Κηδιών Δημητρίου & English. 30 χρόνια στην καρδιά της παροικίας. Έχουν την εμπειρία και αναλαμβάνουν με συνέπεια και επαγγελματισμό τη διοργάνωση της κηδείας του εκλειπώντος, καθώς και κάθε άλλης αναγκαίας πένθυμης τελετής ή ακόμη και τον επαναπατρισμό του αποβιώσαντος στον τόπο καταγωγής του. Και όλα αυτά σε ασυναγώνιστες τιμές. Και δεν είναι λόγια. Μπορούμε να συναγωνιστούμε οποιαδήποτε προσφορά. Τέλος, σας βοηθούμε στη συμπλήρωση των κατάλληλων εγγράφων και την κάλυψη των εξόδων κηδείας από το DSS. Δημητρίου & English. 30 χρόνια στο πλευρό της παροικίας. 888 99 888.
LGR's Talking Property with Carl Knipe.
Welcome back, everybody. Don't forget, we want to hear what you've got to say, your thoughts. This is your show. Call us on 0208 346 3345. Text us on 07376611033 or tweet us at LGR Talk Property. Put your questions and theories to the guests. Let's see what they know. Let's move on to reservation agreements. At the recent Council for Licence Conveyancing Conference, Housing Minister Heather Wheeler said reservation agreements by which sellers and buyers pay a deposit once they have agreed a deal should help prevent the number of failed property transactions. Paula, do you agree with that?
I do, and I think the way that the reservation agreement might work is that at the point of agreed price, that both the buyer and seller puts down a deposit, effectively say £1,000,
Yep.
and then if somebody pulls out for whatever reason, they lose that deposit. I mean, there'll be certain conditions attached that the buyer would have the mortgage in principle ready and the seller would have the full pack ready. But I think that would just mean that people have more skin in the game, really, and it means that you won't get sort of the time wasters and people are quite serious about buying and serious about selling, and it will also stop gazumping and gazundering because that price will be locked in. Of course, if there's an adverse survey, it can be renegotiated, so you won't have that time, and you'll have a sort of time commitment as well. So it should speed it up as well.
Okay. I think it's funny you should say that, because the Right Honourable Member for Derbyshire, she also said that she felt that it would, exactly the phrase that you've used, give everybody some skin in the game. We did actually invite her on this evening, but we didn't receive a reply. But that's pretty standard for a lot of the government ministers, unfortunately, or they're unavailable. I suppose they're all Brexit out at this moment in time. Government's going to run a series of free field trials, they're saying, of reservation agreements this year. Mario, do we? What's your opinion on reservation agreements?
I think it may be in part with the provision of more information. I don't know necessarily whether it'll stop. It'll give the commitment. I get that. Because the buyer ultimately is out of the two in the existing framework is the one who's putting the intent down. Paying for searches up front, they're maybe paying the valuation fee up front for the lender, so that they're probably parting in some instances with the £700-800. The seller isn't necessarily doing that, but would they, if they parted with £1,000 in an upfront agreement, what would happen if a buyer comes knocking on the door and says, well, I'll give you £5,000 extra, because then they'll think, well, I can write off my £1,000.
But at least then the first buyer will at least have money to cover their costs.
Yeah.
Which at the moment now doesn't happen, and buyers can be reluctant to start the survey process, to start putting money in, because they're not certain, so that can get the delay.
But I think Vish, you'll probably know, but there are quite cheap packages for buyers to sort of protect themselves, £25-30 to cover them on the costs. I think because a lot of mortgage advisors sell that as part of the.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. So, for instance, a lot of lenders now do free surveys. So you don't even have to pay anymore. And secondly, if you do have to pay for a survey, you can get a cheap insurance package, 25-30 quid. It basically covers your cost if you've lost out on the property. So that is out there. It's just that people are like, oh no, I won't lose out on the property.
It's not one of those insurance policies that only pays out if you've got half a leg and 3 years, though, is it?
No, it's very straightforward. It's very, very straightforward.
Just send your receipts, ultimately.
No, we offer it on our site as well, and we actually think it's quite a good product that not a lot of people know about, and it does help buyers. But with reservation agreements, a lot of it's not just the cost, but it's the stress, the anguish, the time it takes to look for a property. And if people are not serious about selling or buying, then at least with if a seller pulls out, that they've got some money there. So you think a bit twice. In places like Canada, when you put your house on the market, you can't pull out because the seller is one who's chosen to put the house on the market. So actually, to be honest, once they have an agreed sale, why should they be pulling out?
I think my knowledge should be probably better, but I think in Cyprus, which a lot of the listeners will know, that they do part with money up front, the seller, and the buyer puts down. I think the buyer puts down anywhere between sort of 5% and 10% down, and the seller agrees an exclusivity period, and they can pull out of that on, I think, the grounds of if there is any restrictive issues on title, the planning permission wasn't right, or there's a problem with the survey, so the buyer can pull it out and get their money back. But you're talking quite a sizable amount. It's obviously 5 to 10% down. Not sure whether that would work.
Would reservation agreements now not put off people putting their properties on the market, though? I mean, from my experience, a lot of people put their properties on the market to get a buyer and then go and look for what they're after. Particularly the older people who are maybe, wanting to move down to the coast for a bungalow and things like that.
Well, yeah, because I guess then you might have that scenario where...
I mean, there's not enough property technically coming to market at this present moment anyway.
So if you receive, let's say you're a seller and then you
could put prices up, sorry.
Well, I was going to say, if you receive an offer on your, on your sale, but you've not yet found anywhere to buy, and then you're then going to have to go into an agreement with your buyer, knowing that you've not actually found anywhere to buy yet, might be a little bit difficult. Would the seller want to part with that money, thinking, well, we've not even found anywhere yet, and if we don't find anything, then we'll stay where we are. So that's the only thing. So some of these things just need probably just a bit more refinement.
Well, that's probably why they're going to do the field research.
Yeah, so they're looking to do some behavioural research by the end of the year. So it's nudging people in the right direction. I guess our concern is that we think this is a really good idea, but I'm not sure it can be on a voluntary basis because you need both sides working on it. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. Okay.
Now, a leading agent, Trevor Abrahamson, told the Negotiate magazine on the 1st of February, the government has announced that it will trial reservation agreements this year. Although this is an admirable move, it's not clear as to how these will work in practice, pretty much what we're saying. He went on to say that he thinks the devil's going to be in the detail, though. He says the Scottish or American-based conveyancing models, while slightly different in their composition, make a valiant attempt to organise matters. The result is that you exchange an instant contract and pay a deposit, subject to finance and perhaps structural survey. He does, though, go on to say, however, in the real world, even the US system can be abused by a canny purchaser. Tactics include deliberately frustrating the process of obtaining finance in order to exit a contract to purchase, among other things. Do we think that the Scottish or American system could be the way forward then? Let's speak to Kyle Peddie, the Chief Executive of Your Conveyancing, who I believe we've got online. Good evening, Kyle.
Good evening, Carl.
Good evening. Kyle has been in the industry for 35 years. Your Conveyancer operate in Scotland and deal with approximately 25,000 property transactions a year. Is that correct, Kyle?
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Good. Well, lovely to have you with us. I'd like to welcome you particularly on behalf of all our Scottish listeners who are listening probably on the DAB. Thank you for taking the time, as I said. So, Kyle, should England and Wales adopt the Scottish system of property transacting? Would that be better?
Historically, it would have been better, but I think the way things are at present, the answer is no. Unfortunately, we've evolved into the equivalent of your chain situation and uncertainty over the last 7 or 8 years. I think a combination of the market being slightly soft and also tightening of mortgage regulations have led to people holding off from what you would call exchanging. I mean, our system, in the good old days, we operated slightly different to you. You do your title examination, your searches pre-exchange.
Yeah.
So there's a time lag. And historically, what our system was designed to do was to exchange upfront, conditional upon these things being dealt with. So basically, buyer and seller were contracted at an early stage. And the only get out for them would be if there was a problem with title, for example, or searches. But what's happened now is that offers are going in subject to finance and subject to exchange on a sale. And as was mentioned a few minutes ago, that's being manipulated to a certain extent by agents, solicitors I'm talking about, really. So we are now, more often than not, exchanging on the day of completion.
Right. So basically what they're doing is finding a way around it, is pretty much what Trevor
Exactly.
Abelson was saying.
But it's actually slightly worse in your system, I suspect, because with your exchange, you set your completion date from the exchange date. So it could be 2 weeks from then or a week or whatever it might be. So at that stage, you've got an element of certainty. Our difficulty is that we have what's called a date of entry, which is the date that we are targeting as being the completion date. So buyers and sellers have this notional date in their mind, and then we get to that completion date and we don't complete.
Right. That's not good.
Now, they've got removal vans sitting outside their doors, etc. So the dissatisfaction is pretty high at that stage, and then there's uncertainty as to when it will complete, of course. So it's by no means the ideal situation, I'm afraid, as we've actually evolved into what you have, which is long chains, a much higher level of aborts, which we never used to have, but that's increasing as people become disaffected, or they find something else they want to buy, or change their mind, whatever it might be.
Sounds like your system needs an overhaul too, by the sounds of things.
Well, there's a lot of stuff going on at the moment up here, I think exactly the same way as it is with you, with looking at trying to improve the whole process, and there's no ideal solution to it at the moment, I'm afraid. We do have the home report, which is what was essentially your HIP, with the added element of evaluation, and that does make some issues can be addressed earlier in the process and dealt with, but unfortunately it doesn't necessarily mean that the whole thing is going to complete quicker.
Okay. You got any questions, Carl? That's quite interesting, isn't it, Paula?
Hi. I was just wondering, previously, when you said that you didn't have chains so much, is that something that just people would then just move into rented accommodation or do something else and sort of break up the chain? Because that's what I wonder in England and Wales, that we want to move from one place to another, and whether we try to break the chains in some way.
Yeah, I think chains weren't a problem in the past, because what people used to do in the old days, of course, was if they were buying and they hadn't sold, they got bridging. Doesn't really apply now, largely, but people, the market was hotter then, so people could actually buy and then put the house in the market and sell, and they had these dates, so they maybe put a long completion date on the basis they'd sell, but that has all changed now. People don't really commit to buying until they've got a purchaser for their own property. So we never had chains really until the last 5 years, really.
Right.
It didn't really exist up here, and now, as I said, a lot of transactions have long chains, and of course, as with you, if one person drops out of the chain, then the whole thing just collapses. Yeah.
Sounds like both systems need a big overhaul. That's without a doubt.
I think the trouble is that from an agent's point of view, solicitor's point of view, they're not prepared to commit a client to a purchase until they're absolutely sure they've got a mortgage in place. Yeah. And likewise, they're not prepared to commit until they're sure that they've got an exchange on a house sale as well. So they're holding back. And they're advising their clients not to conclude what we call missives, exchange contracts, until they've got these things in place.
Okay. Are you under a lot of pressure from lenders? More pressure, more requirements than you used to be then?
Well, I think it's not us that's under the pressure. I think it's the actual consumer that's under the pressure in terms of having to fulfil much stricter criteria. Yeah. And that's the issue. And I think in the old days, sorry, you can probably tell my age by me referring to the old days, actually.
Don't worry, I do that as well.
People committed when they had a decision in principle from a lender. Okay. And now they're not prepared to do that, because they know that when it gets to underwriting, that could be reversed. And so until they have a mortgage offer in their hands, then they're really not prepared to commit.
Okay, that's really, really interesting. Carl, thanks for coming on behalf of our listeners in the UK and across the world. Thank you so much for speaking to us this evening. You have a good evening.
Pleasure. You too. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Let's go to a break.
You're listening to LGR's Talking Property.
Kings Group has been in the high street for nearly 30 years. Agreeing a sale on your property is the easy part. Ensuring it completes and you move is the hard part in today's market. That's why we're here with you every step of the way, and there's no upfront fee. At Kings Group, we are local property experts with a proven track record. Kings have won over 50 Estes Awards for customer service, voted for by you, the public. We have also been awarded the FIFO Gold Service 2018 Award for Outstanding Service, voted again by our satisfied clients. We are motivated to move you with the minimum fuss in the quickest possible time, while ensuring you are given the personal customer service and advice you deserve. Kings Group, with branch offices across North London, East London, Hertfordshire and Essex. Kings Group offer a special discount of 20% to LGR listeners off all our standard fees. Simply mention LGR's Talking Property for further information. Please call on 01707 872 000 or visit www.kings-group.net. Kings Group, you only pay on results, not promises.
LGR's Talking Property with Carl Knipe.
Great to have you back. Has Kyle helped, or has he created more questions in your mind? I think that's the question for the guests, but also for you, the listeners out there. I know that quite a few people have come up to me over the years and said that we should be adopting the Scottish system or something that much more certainty. But it seems that that's breaking down as well. It's chaos everywhere, I think, is the answer. Vish, what would you take on that?
He touched on mortgages actually being a major problem, and he's totally right. It's he said the agreement in principle used to be valid sort of in the old days, but nowadays no one's willing to use that as kind of, we're definitely going to get a mortgage. And they're totally right in saying that, because a decision in principle, agreement in principle, whatever you want to call it, is just a credit check. Okay. It is nothing else.
Paula, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, because I always think that the property market is so different in different countries. It's really, really hard to say that the Norway system or the Canadian American system, you're paying 6% commission to estate agents, to buyers and sellers. So I think we really have to look at what we've got here, and then make tweaks and things like that, as opposed to looking elsewhere. Because it's
6%. Cool.
Yeah, 3% for a buyer's estate agent, and because the estate agency fees are cut. So you have buyer's agents and selling agents. So.
Okay. Call us on 0208 346 3345 or text us on 0737 6611 033. Or tweet us at LGR Talk Property. Conveyancing element. We're going to move on to this, Mario. Probably your expertise. Henry Ford of Ford Motor fame once said, if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. He was talking about the early days of the motor car industry, but he could have been talking about the conveyancing industry, couldn't he?
Yeah, he could. I think the way the market is. I mean, the process has become more challenging, even though technology should have brought it forward like it has done with many other industries. But I think sort of touched upon off air. It's a cottage industry at the end of the day. There's lots of little solicitors, small firms up and down the country that are doing one or two transactions. Maybe don't have the investment there to sort of bring in some efficiencies within their business and utilise what technology is there. So, in my opinion, I think it should really be an area where technology is brought in to bring in some efficiencies and start cutting down some of the time.
Paula, what do you think on that?
Yeah, no, I'd agree. And I'd also say that I think what people mostly want from conveyancing is communication. So it is so true that, you have some that don't communicate. There was a survey done that 8 out of 10 just they want better communication. They want to be told what's happening once a week. And that's where technology can really help. And that's why it's important to choose your conveyancer carefully. making sure you get somebody who, especially if you're buying leasehold or new build, somebody who really knows what they're doing, specialist, because it can be very complicated, and the consequences can be quite dire if you get it wrong.
I think, have lawyers hardly changed their approach? They have hardly changed their approach to conveyancing in the last 10 years, haven't they, Mario?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing it now for 16 and a half years, something like that, and there's not a great deal has been changed. We joked about off air again about some solicitors still not accepting communication via email. But they're not alone in that. There's some managing agents that also don't accept emails and prefer some things like checks and things like that. So it's still, kind of each firm does it the way they want to do it, and I think because it's so disjointed is why things drag out. So really you need to be looking at firms who are going to give you a transparent client journey, so you know exactly where you are, as opposed to having to drive into a city centre to go and see somebody face to face or call and leave messages.
That's fine, but as Kyle said, the problem is most transactions are in a chain, so you can, I suppose it's a bit like cooking the Sunday lunch. If everyone's cooking a different part of it, you can cook yours absolutely spot on time, but if the other people don't, if they've got slower cookers than you,
agree,
or they start later, that's a real issue, isn't it?
And there's no communication, so you can start blaming others. So if something's in the post or this and that, and that's where we can have like technology can help with transparency. It'd be great if we had some sort of tool that consumers and the estate agents, the conveyancers, everyone can look at and see where every little piece of paperwork is and what's holding things up, and for consumers to understand how long things take. They want it quicker, but they want certainty. It's fine if it takes 12 weeks or whatever, but knowing that's the length of time it takes and where they are in the process would be really, really helpful.
So a piece of software that everybody in the industry uses?
Yeah, I mean, I think
standard.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult because it's a cottage industry and everyone's got their own systems. But if there's something that you can actually see what your conveyancer's doing, what the other conveyancer's doing, where the paperwork is, and just understanding that something's happening, because that's where it just goes into sometimes a black hole and you don't know what's happening where it's coming out. So if it's stuck with a leasehold manager to get that information, at least you can see, and that gives a bit more sort of certainty and clarity.
I don't want to kick the legal profession, Mario, but it strikes me. I've seen lawyers rapidly embrace technology to verify bank details of other lawyers to whom they send client money. Obviously, because that's something that's major to them. They're really worried about that. So they've got that facility, and it's demonstrably reduced fraud risk from what I can see. Maybe I'm wrong there. So why not more for the actual transaction? Why are they not embracing this?
Well, I think because ultimately, it requires investment. So, adopting a case management system which will have an element of giving visibility to a client of where the progress is, again, that requires investment. Some solicitors, it isn't, conveyancing isn't the core business. It's not what brings in the big money. So, I guess there's priorities of where you're going to invest within your business. I think there's going to be a bit of a change as we move forward because Vishal will probably know, but there's lots of lenders who are trimming down their solicitor panels. So who knows, you might get to a stage in 5 to 10 years time where you have more sort of regional hubs of conveyancing as opposed to smaller practices on the high street, not because the larger firms are taking over, but more so the lenders probably tightening up their requirements of who they'll allow onto the panel.
I think clients, lawyers, agents, mortgage brokers, everybody would all benefit from sort of a central case tracking portal of some sort.
I think it comes back down to communication again. Basically, if everyone's told the honest truth of the progress of a case, people are actually happy, no matter if it takes 2 weeks or 12 weeks, because their expectations. They now know what to expect.
Well, that's managing people's expectations.
Yeah. So when I have, for instance, I'll give you a couple of examples. So I call up a solicitor. Oh, I'm waiting for something from the other solicitor. Call up the other solicitor. I get the exact same response. I'm waiting for something from the other solicitor. That's what infuriates people.
But that's probably not telling fibs. That's probably just they don't know what they're doing.
Also, I think it's the
Mario.
The thing is, the sort of the stock answer response given when someone is chasing a solicitor, to get themselves off the phone is, I'm waiting for the other side, which may be true, may not be true. But because there's no transparency, no one knows. And that's why, as I said, some of the larger firms, like ourselves, you can see, the client can see, the agent can see the process and where it's at. So, it's about giving transparency, and unfortunately, just because the industry is so fragmented, you're just not going to get it with all solicitors. So.
Yeah, so the case management system, for instance, you guys have a case management system, everything's logged, every call's logged, every piece of information's logged, so I don't even have to call you lot, I can check it.
That's very nice.
So, which is good, and it's the same with, I can update the agent, I can update whoever needs to be updated.
And that's the thing, isn't it? It's easy, it makes it's efficient, it gives you time to go and do something else, as opposed to phoning in, and because no doubt you're stuck on hold to lenders for, hours on end, so if we can save you a phone call, then great, but so that's just us, and unfortunately the rest of the industry isn't like that. So there is technology out there, but it's got to be invested in.
And I think that, there are some really interesting startups and things like Digital Move and stuff like that doing this, but I can't see how it's going to get any market share, because it's a bit like reservation agreements. You need both sides to be using one system. That's the difficulty I see. And estate agents who might like to will also say a different story, will tell a different story if they're trying to keep chains together and whatnot. So, and that's what gets so confusing and frustrating and stressful for people trying to buy and sell.
Yeah. Without a doubt. I think a free market's great in many areas, but in some areas there needs to be things that are imposed and responsibility taken. On that point, we're going to go to a break. We'll come back straight away.
You're listening to LGR's Talking Property.
Η Alpha Cleaning Services είναι μια εταιρεία εμπιστοσύνης με πείρα μεγαλύτερη των 10 χρόνων στην παροικία που προσφέρει υπηρεσίες γενικού καθαρισμού σε γραφεία, επιχειρήσεις και σχολεία.
Ειδικεύεται στον καθαρισμό των χαλιών. Υπογράφοντας συμβόλαιο διάρκειας 1 έτους, έχετε εντελώς δωρεάν τον καθαρισμό των χαλιών σας. Παίρνετε έκπτωση 10% αναφέροντας το London Greek Radio.
Η Alpha Cleaning Services καλύπτει επίσης και περιοχές εκτός Λονδίνου, καθώς και άλλες πόλεις. Alpha Cleaning Services.
Για πληροφορίες καλέστε Βόρειο Λονδίνο 0203 295 8888 ή 079 1788 6700. Για το Νότιο Λονδίνο καλέστε 0203 295 8889.
LGR's Talking Property with Carl Knipe.
Great to have you back with us. Third parties, I'm thinking specifically here, local authority searches, leasehold managing agents and mortgage applications. These are 3 areas that definitely slow things down. They impact considerably on the duration of the transaction. I think that's fair to say. Should there not be regulation of management companies, Paula?
Most definitely.
You said that very passionately.
Very, very, and I know the government is looking at it, but it is absolutely shocking, particularly in the leasehold area, that it's effectively sort of blackmail, that, you give us X amount of money to fill out these forms to sell your property. So I think all over in the leasehold and, managing agents, even with service charges, whatnot, and we're, building a lot more leasehold properties, it's an area that, needs to be looked at quite carefully, because it does really slow things down, and it's that extra stress. So,
I was going to say it's long overdue, because, more and more, obviously flats being erected and lots of leasehold properties, which, ultimately now, you require managing agent information to be provided, and so you've got an element there of they're a law unto themselves in terms of what they charge, and then how quickly they respond.
Well, that's what I was going to say. There's 2 issues, isn't there? There's one, the cost. There seem to be massively varying costs of what one management company would charge for a response to another. Some is £75, some is £375 and more, and they're just. I mean, to me, there should be some. Again, I asked the question. Just my personal thoughts. I think there should be some legislation to compel them to have to respond in a certain period of time.
Definitely, for them to respond in a certain period and with the costs that are associated. So up until now, they'll say, well, you can go to the first property tribunal, but that takes ages, and you're going through a sale. So, and I'd go further that they need to be properly regulated, because if you're looking at some of the other charges when you're actually owning your own home, it can be quite shocking that they're charging for if you want to change your carpets or you want to remortgage. It's the whole sort of leasehold, or there's a whole asset class that these disappeared managing agents and freeholders, and our campaign is to abolish leasehold, full stop, really, over time. So yeah.
And so how long have you had that going for?
Well, we did a report a couple of years ago, and there's a lot of momentum. I mean, of course, it will take time, but to have the leasehold flats to go into common hold, and just to really start to draw it out, because right now there's a lot of money being made in freeholds, and it's quite sort of a murky world out there. Right. And people who think they're buying their own home realize that actually they're buying the right to live there for 99 years or 125. So it is murky world out there. That's
another topic that we're probably going to focus on in a show further down the line, because you're absolutely right. That is something that certainly needs investigating. Give us a call on 0208 346 3345. Text us on 07376 611033, or tweet us at LGR Talk Property if there's anything you'd like to ask. Local authorities. Strikes me as a real strange one, this, that local authority searches, some areas can turn them around in 72 hours, others take best part of 72 days. I'm exaggerating slightly, but it certainly seems that it's 4, 5, 6 weeks in some areas, certainly in the areas that we operate in around here. We were discussing that. Mario, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, no, you're right, and the variations are as stark as you say. You
why is that then?
I guess it comes down to ultimately each local authority is ultimately governs itself. It comes up with how much investment it's going to put into systems to make it more efficient, and that's why it varies. It's not it doesn't come from a centralised government sort of dictating what you should do around that. It's up to each individual local authority, and you have some local authorities who have 1 or 2 people that look after searches.
So it's funding. It's a funding.
Yeah, there's
issue,
a funding. Yeah, there's a funding. Yeah, there's a big funding issue there. That's why you get Harlow, Epping, where you're looking at 4 to 5 week turnarounds for obviously areas around here, and I think that you've got to factor that in when you're looking to buy a house, because you've got to get those searches on the way really quick.
Because this just slows the whole process down, and the longer the process takes, the more people's sales are at risk, the more costly it becomes, isn't it?
And I think one other thing is that it depends on the solicitor you work with as well. They might not even check anything until absolutely every document is in, so that'll include the searches, the mortgage offer, and then the clock really starts ticking then. So if you've waited 4 or 5 weeks for those searches to come in, and then you then embark on the process of raising inquiries, it's no surprise why duration times are 3 to 4 months.
Yeah, far too long. Something else then the government needs to legislate.
Yeah, there's a lot they need to do.
Mortgage applications. I needed to ask you this, Vish, and we discussed it as well previously, but in times gone by, I mean, it used to be that certainly if you went back into the 1970s, if you wanted to think about buying a property, before you did absolutely anything, you'd put on your best suit and go and walk around the local high street, go and see the bank manager and charm him to lend you the money. So you sort of pretty much knew your finance was good to go, subject to survey. Is that the case now?
Definitely not.
We did touch on this, didn't we?
Yeah, it's one of the problems is basically, as we were talking about earlier, agreement in principles is what agents will ask for in terms of, have you got finance? Now, an agreement in principle doesn't mean anything these days. It's a credit check. So I could get anyone in the world an agreement in principle as long as they've got good credit for £1 million. Doesn't mean you can get a mortgage loan for £1 million. You don't have to see documents to do an agreement in principle.
Right, so why are we doing agreement in principles then?
Because agents ask.
But that's of no real benefit to clients, a vendor or purchaser, is it?
So basically, look, what needs to happen is a mortgage application needs to go in, an underwriter needs to see that application, obviously we already know the credit's good because it's gone through the system, it needs to check the documents, need to make sure, yep, this is the max loan amount, and then they can go and see a property.
Lenders won't accept a full application to the clients, correct me if I'm wrong, from my understanding, until the client actually has found the property, is that right? These days, it didn't used to be, but it seems to be the case. Yeah.
Exactly, so this needs to change. Now obviously...
It's not though, is it?
it won't change if we don't speak about it.
Why won't lenders accept full applications?
Costing, funding. It's not worth their while, is it? So they're doing applications basically without clients that have found a property. How do we know if the client's serious or not, etc.? So the way to get around it is charge the client. So to put an application in costs £100, £150, whatever it is, call it a booking fee. The lender can see it and basically underwrites the case. It means that you won't get waste of time clients anymore. It also means that, you know your finances are good, the agent's more assured, the solicitor's more assured, you already know kind of what lender you're going to. Everything's just more streamlined. And guess what? If you do complete on the property, you get that booking fee back because the lender's getting their money out of interest anyway.
Okay. Is that not adding to the cost though? I know you're saying that if you complete, but what about the people who don't complete?
Why wouldn't they complete though?
I don't know. They might change their mind.
Well, if you change your mind, you've lost your money.
Yeah.
I think also it's something like that. I mean, I think it's a sensible idea, and it's like the reservation agreements. It's, putting a bit of money where your mouth is.
Skin in the game.
Skin in the game,
yeah.
Yes. So, no, I think it sounds like a sensible idea. And I'm sure there will be, as we talked before about home buyers protection insurance, is that I'm sure there'll be insurance around there that if something does go wrong, people might be able to take out some insurance if they think that they're not going to complete and they need that deposit back. But it's more the act of actually, I think, writing the check or whatever and handing over that little bit of money to show they're serious.
Things need to change.
Exactly, because they do it for large loans. I don't know if anyone knows this, but for larger loans over 500,000, I can actually approach underwriters. They can look at the case and give me a verification. Yes, we'll accept that, and then my client can.
So we've got a two-tier system then.
Yes, they like the rich.
Presumably, you can make more money out of them.
Exactly.
Can't be right, can it?
No.
We're going to go to another break, our final one, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk about duplication of various bits of information.
You're listening to LGR's Talking Property.
Kings Group has been in the high street for nearly 30 years. Agreeing a sale on your property is the easy part. Ensuring it completes and you move is the hard part in today's market. That's why we're here with you every step of the way, and there's no upfront fee. At Kings Group, we are local property experts with a proven track record. Kings have won over 50 Estes Awards for customer service, voted for by you, the public. We have also been awarded the FIFO Gold Service 2018 Award for Outstanding Service. Voted again by our satisfied clients, we are motivated to move you with the minimum fuss in the quickest possible time while ensuring you are given the personal customer service and advice you deserve. Kings Group, with branch offices across North London, East London, Hertfordshire and Essex. Kings Group offer a special discount of 20% to LGR listeners off all our standard fees. Simply mention LGR's Talking Property for further information. Please call on 01707 872 000 or visit www.kings-group.net. Kings Group, you only pay on results, not promises.
LGR's Talking Property with Carl Knipe.
Great to have you back with us. Duplication. This is something that really gets onto me. I really don't understand how people have to show ID and for money laundering purposes to the estate agent, to their lawyer, to their mortgage broker. Every time they're getting this paperwork out, there's a risk of there being fraud, etc. Surely there should be a central system that they can just upload it to that will allow access.
Yeah, 100%. Basically, what I try and do is I try and help the client. So they've given me their ID documents. Rather than them giving it to the solicitor, I can verify it, give it over to the solicitor, certify a copy, give people the copies they need. Because it must be absolutely infuriating having to upload your ID 3 or 4 times. I can't think of anything worse. It's just, and then people want it in different formats. For instance, my network makes me get it in black and white. When I spoke to solicitors, they were like, no, we want it in colour. So
why are we doing this? Are we doing it for a reason, or are we doing it just to basically cover everyone's backside?
It's all for money laundering, isn't it?
Yeah. I think.
But why are we doing it in triplicate? It doesn't make sense.
Well, no, there's no reason for it, and I think technology will enable us to basically just have a client submit it once and lock it down through things like blockchain and distributed ledger technologies, all stuff which I can't say I'm too clued up on. However, I do know that Land Registry Digital Street project is looking at that. So essentially, you go to your first, whether it's the mortgage advisor, the conveyancers, they verify it gets locks it down. and then everybody can automatically go in and check off the client as being that's they pass and we move forward. Because at the moment it's there's a lot of duplication and it leads to a lot of frustrations, because when a conveyancer solicitor asks for it, I've already given that, I've given it to my estate agent, or I've given it to my mortgage advisor.
A lot of misunderstanding there.
Exactly.
People don't realise, and quite rightly so, they can't understand why they've got to do it again and again. And as I say, I just find this just bizarre. I think you guys might have a different opinion, but it strikes me as legislation gone mad, cutting across itself. With just a little bit of a tidy up, we could easily remedy this. And again, this is just something that would help speed up the system. Paula?
Yeah, no, I agree, and it's it's the perception as well that you're feeling that you lose the trust in the professionals who are trying to help you if you're asking for the same information over and over again. So, I think this is something that probably I expect technology will help solve. That we have digital footprints and IDs and things like that. So
yeah, I think and beyond the ID side, electronic using technology to sign things electronically, that's a natural step which we'll probably move into.
But we do know that people are really, really worried about property fraud and just generally fraud. And I know there's a lot of fraud happening, and conveyancers are being targeted. And it's something that people are extremely concerned about and need to be educated about, disclosing details and things like that.
Yeah, agree.
So it seems to me when I look back at what we've just been discussing for the last 40, 50 minutes, it seems to be there's lots of little wins that we could have, but there just needs to be pulled together very simply with just some simple legislation to say, well, we don't need it 3 times, we only need it once at this point. We need management companies to respond in 14 days or whatever. Is there an appetite for change? I mean, is it a lot of hot air by the housing minister, and we'll just feed the birds with one nut today and then we'll give them another nut tomorrow?
I think they're looking for industry to lead, is what they say. So, I think it's... that
means they haven't got a clue then.
Well, I think maybe they have an idea, but, the idea of legislation, there's no legislative time for much else besides Brexit. They're looking for industry to lead. And I think the difficulty is that there's so many different parts of industry. Just the number of conveyancers alone, it's going to be very, very hard to get everyone working along the same direction. I think the land registry is really, really important here, and giving them the proper resource to look at some of these things, and having more digital information, I think, is the way to go. So have a very strong, well-resourced land registry.
So investment. The problem is all these things always come down to money, don't they? I don't know. Does it come down to money? I think that a very small amount of money in relation to the amount of money that's in the industry could easily pull together and tighten up the system in many, many ways. It just seems like there's lots of
vested interests in it. It's great for, say, surveyors to resurvey the same property over and over again when it fails to complete. So there's a lot of different vested interests, and it's quite difficult, the knock-on effects. So it's we've got a very complicated conveyancing system. And I'd say also with the legislation, we need to think about it's not just legislation, it's enforcement. There's a lot of legislation that already exists around things like estate agents, whatever, but it's not being enforced.
No.
And then it's not worth the paper it's written on.
No, that's very true. That's very true. These things need to be put right. Okay, well, we're coming to the end of the show. It's been great having you with us. So all that remains really is to thank you guys for taking the time out of your busy days, or busy evenings, to come and visit us here at LGR Towers. Thank you to you, the listeners, for being, just you. One final thing, we'd like to hear from you with your thoughts on what you'd like us to cover on LGR's Talking Property over the coming months. Is there any burning topics or things that you think within the property industry we ought to be talking about? Something that's been an issue for yourself in the past, something that you've noticed with your friends, family or relatives? We want to hear from you. Please text us on 0737 6611033 or email us at talkingproperty@lgr.co.uk with your suggestions. You can also continue the discussion on Twitter at LGR Talk Property as soon as we've finished. Remember, it's your show and we're on live every Wednesday of the month at 7 p.m. We're back Wednesday the 6th of March at the same time. Till then, take care, enjoy life and be good.
Talking Property was brought to you in association with the Kings Group, your local high street property business that delivers on results and service. We'll get you moving. The views and opinions expressed on LGR's Talking Property are those of the host, guests and contributors and are not necessarily those of London Greek Radio. While all facts, figures and statistics are carefully researched, listeners should check before taking any action based on information and advice offered in this programme. LGR's Talking Property is presented by Carl Knipe and produced by London Greek Radio.
LGR 103.3 FM.